The shack smelled of whiskey and rot. A single lantern swung from a rusted hook, its flame casting long, trembling shadows across the dirt floor. She sat bound to a chair, wrists raw from rope, her breath coming shallow, broken. Every creak of the wood made her flinch. Her stepfather loomed above her. Broad shoulders, eyes yellow with drink, the stench of cheap liquor clinging to him like a curse. His boots crunched against the dirt as he circled, slow as a predator. "You ruined everything," he slurred, spitting the words like venom. "Everything I built. You tore it down." She shook her head, tears cutting through the dust on her cheeks. "Please, I didn't—" The slap came fast, snapping her head sideways. Her lips split, the taste of blood filling her mouth. He laughed, low and hollow. "Don't beg. Ain't no salvation for you." He snatched a cloth from the table, ragged, stained, smelling of smoke and iron. With cruel hands, he shoved it against her face, muffling her sobs. Her muffled plea broke through. "It's all gone wrong." The lantern light caught the fear in her eyes. He leaned close, whispering in a voice sharp with hatred, "You ain't worth the dirt you cry on." Dragging her by the ropes, he hauled her through the splintered doorway. The night air hit her like a slap, cold, biting, filled with the lonely cry of coyotes. The desert stretched wide and merciless under the moon, silent witness to his cruelty. He dragged her across the hard ground, dust clinging to her torn dress, her bare feet scraping over stone. At the edge of the gulch he stopped, rope burning against his calloused hands as he lashed her to a leaning fence post. "There," he spat, tightening the knots. "Coyotes'll do what I can't stomach." Her eyes searched the dark horizon, heart pounding with the weight of finality. She tried to scream, but the cloth smothered her voice, her words lost to the desert wind. Bootsteps faded into the night. Silence pressed heavy, broken only by her shallow, trembling breaths. The lantern glow was gone, leaving her in shadows, bound and alone, the cruel hand of fate closing tight. The moon hung heavy over the gulch, its pale glow stretching shadows long across the dirt. She was bound to the splintered fence post, wrists tied so tight her hands had gone numb, each shallow breath fogged against the cloth gag, damp with her tears. The stepfather's boots crunched the gravel as he stepped back, his figure cutting a jagged shape against the horizon. He muttered to himself, half laughing, half spitting, "Desert'll finish you. Rattlers, coyotes, doesn't matter which. By sunrise, you'll be gone." Her muffled voice broke through, desperate, pleading, "Please, don't leave me." But he didn't turn. He staggered away, a dark silhouette shrinking into the night. The sound of his boots faded, swallowed by the endless hush of the desert wind. The silence that followed was cruel. Only the scrape of rope against wood, the creak of the fence post, and her ragged breaths filled the void. She fought the bindings until her wrists bled, but the knots held firm. Above, a hawk circled against the silver sky, its shadow crossing her face. She thought of freedom, of running barefoot across open fields when she was a child, but the memories slipped away like water through her fingers. Her head dropped forward, lips trembling against the gag. "It's all gone wrong," she whispered into the cloth, voice weak as dust. A hiss broke the silence. Her eyes darted to the brush. A rattlesnake uncoiled, its scales glinting in the moonlight, tongue flickering toward her bare ankles. She froze, heart pounding, every nerve alive with terror. The rattle grew louder, filling the emptiness with dread. She tried to kick, but the ropes held her tight. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed her head back against the post, whispering into the cloth, "God, not like this. Please, not like this." The snake slithered past, vanishing into the shadows. Relief came sharp and fleeting, replaced by the gnawing despair of knowing she wasn't safe yet. Her chin sagged to her chest. Each breath came shallower, the night pressing heavier with every second. Stars above looked cold, indifferent, as if the heavens themselves had turned away. Alone. Bound. Waiting for death in the cruel silence of the desert. The first light of dawn broke across the desert, painting the horizon in muted gold and red. Dust hung low in the air, glowing like embers in the morning sun. A lone rider appeared against that backdrop, a weathered rancher, shoulders bowed, eyes sharp beneath the brim of his hat. His horse's hooves echoed like a drumbeat across the hard pan. He wasn't looking for trouble, just heading home from a long night tending cattle. But the desert had its way of pulling men into things they never asked for. As he crested the ridge, his gaze locked on the fence post below. At first, it looked like a rag doll lashed in the wind. Then he saw the movement, the faint slump of a body, the weak tilt of a head, his stomach clenched. He spurred the horse forward, dirt flying under pounding hooves. The closer he came, the clearer the horror revealed itself. A young woman bound tight, her face hidden beneath a filthy cloth. Her wrists bled from rope burns, her chest barely rising with shallow breath, Lord above. The rancher muttered, sliding from the saddle. His boots hit the ground hard, dust swirling around him. He pulled his knife free, slicing the knots with practiced hands. The ropes fell away, her arms dropping limp to her sides. "Stay with me," he said, his voice low, steady, almost a prayer. When he lifted the cloth from her face, his heart near stopped. Bruises bloomed along her cheekbones, lips cracked and bloodied. But her eyes, they opened, weak yet burning with a flicker of life. She tried to speak, but only a broken whisper escaped. "Please, don't leave me." His jaw tightened, grief and fury warring in his chest. He gathered her gently into his arms, the weight of her frail body pressing against his calloused hands. "No one's leaving you," he murmured, voice rough with conviction. "Not while I'm breathing," the horse snorted, pawing the earth as if urging them to move. The rancher looked out at the endless desert, then back down at her battered face. "You're safe now, girl," he whispered, pulling her closer. "Ain't no man gonna touch you again." And with that vow, he lifted her onto the saddle, mounting behind her, holding her steady as he turned the horse toward home, carrying her away from the place of death, toward the fragile hope of survival. The cabin door groaned on its hinges as the rancher pushed it open with his shoulder, carrying her inside. The air smelled of wood smoke and coffee grounds, the warmth of the hearth battling the chill of the dawn. He laid her gently on a worn quilt near the fire, her frail body shivering even in the heat. For a long moment, she clutched the filthy cloth he had torn from her face, holding it against her chest as though it still bound her. Her eyes darted around the small room, shelves lined with jars, an old rocking chair by the window, a rifle mounted above the door. Safety, but strange. She didn't know if she could trust it. The rancher knelt by the fire, stoking the embers until flames licked higher, chasing the shadows back into the corners. He poured steaming water into a tin cup, his rough hands trembling not from age but from anger. "Drink," he said softly, lifting the cup to her lips. She sipped, coughing, but swallowed. The warmth steadied her breath. Her voice came small, cracked from thirst. "He'll come back." The rancher's jaw clenched. "Who?" She looked away, tears welling. "Not my father. Not really. He's the devil. He's all I ever knew." Her words cracked as if confessing a sin. "He said no one would ever help me." Silence stretched, broken only by the pop of the fire. The rancher leaned back on his heels, his weathered face lined with a storm of fury and pity. "Girl," he said, voice steady as stone. "A devil's just a man who thinks no law can touch him. But men bleed, and men fall." She lowered her head, clutching the cloth tighter. "What if he finds me?" The rancher reached out, laying a hand over hers. His grip was firm, grounding. "Then he finds me first." Her breath caught, the firelight glinting in her damp eyes. For the first time since the desert, she allowed herself to exhale without fear. The cabin creaked under the wind outside, but within its walls, there was a fragile calm, the first shelter she had ever known. The rancher poured himself coffee, staring into the fire. In the flicker of light, his vow hardened. Justice would come, and this girl would never face that devil alone again. Night fell slow over the prairie, the cabin wrapped in the hush of crickets and the low whisper of wind through dry grass. The young woman sat by the hearth, her knees pulled to her chest, eyes fixed on the fire's glow as though it alone kept the darkness at bay. The rancher moved quietly, setting another log on the flames. His rifle leaned against the wall within easy reach. He didn't trust the silence outside. Too still, too watchful. Then came the sound, faint at first. Wagon wheels crunching gravel. A horse's snort carried on the wind. The rancher froze, every muscle tight. He eased to the window, pulling the curtain back a sliver. There, under the pale wash of moonlight, swaggered a figure he knew too well. Her stepfather. Hat low, pistol heavy on his hip. Two men staggered behind him, drunk and mean, laughter echoing like wolves on the prowl. The rancher's hand found the rifle. He whispered without turning, voice low and sharp. "Stay down. Don't make a sound." The girl pressed herself against the hearthstones, trembling, clutching the tattered cloth like a shield. Her lips moved in silent prayer. Outside, the villain's voice rang out, mocking and cruel. "Girl, you think you can hide from me? You're mine. Always will be." His laughter split the night, thick with whiskey and spite. The two men behind him jeered, one throwing a bottle that shattered against a fence post. The echo cut through the prairie like a gunshot. The rancher kept his rifle leveled, breath steady. One squeeze and he could end it now, but the girl's life hung in the balance. If he fired, they'd storm the cabin, torches and bullets flying. He waited, still as stone. The villain spat into the dirt, eyes sweeping the shadows. "You can't keep her from me. Ain't no law out here but mine." Then, with a bitter curse, he jerked the reins of his horse. The wagon wheels groaned as he turned back toward the open road, his gang trailing after him, their laughter fading into the dark. Inside, silence returned. The girl's eyes were wide, glassy with terror. She whispered, "He won't stop." The rancher lowered the rifle, jaw set hard. "Then neither will I." The fire popped, sparks leaping, as though sealing his vow. The morning sun crept over the horizon, casting long beams of gold across the dusty road to town. The rancher rode steady, his coat pulled tight against the wind. In front of him, wrapped in his arms, the young woman clung to his shirt, her face buried against the rough fabric. Each hoofbeat carried them farther from the cabin, but not far enough from the shadow that followed her. The town stirred awake as they arrived. Wagons rattled, shopkeepers swept porches, and a dog barked from beneath a water trough. But when the rancher dismounted in front of the sheriff's office, the air seemed to shift. Folks noticed her bruises, the torn dress, the hollow look in her eyes. Murmurs rippled through the street. Inside, the sheriff's office smelled of coffee and gun oil. A single lantern still burned from the night before, its flame wavering against the wanted posters lining the wall. Sheriff Briggs, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, eyes like iron, looked up from his desk as the rancher entered with the girl. "What in God's name?" The sheriff muttered, standing slowly. The rancher's voice was gravel. "She needs your help, and he needs a rope." The girl sat in the wooden chair by the desk, trembling. But when the sheriff knelt before her, his voice softened. "Tell me, child, who did this?" Tears welled as her words spilled out, halting at first, then steady. Every slap, every cruel word, every night of terror. She told of the fence post, the gag, the laughter as he left her to die. Her voice cracked, but did not break. The sheriff listened in silence, pen scratching across paper, every word taken down. When she finished, he set the pen aside and placed a hand over hers. "You've carried this long enough. Law'll carry it now." But outside, through the open window, came the low murmur of voices from the saloon. Men whispering, defending the outlaw, claiming debts owed and favors promised. The rancher's jaw tightened as he caught their words. The sheriff straightened, steel in his voice. "He's got friends in this town, no doubt. But law's the only friend that matters." The girl met his eyes, for the first time holding on to a flicker of hope. The rancher placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You ain't alone anymore." And for the first time, she believed him. The prairie night was thick with silence, the kind that pressed against the skin and warned of trouble. The rancher sat by the hearth, rifle across his knees, the girl asleep on the cot nearby. Her breath was shallow but even, a small mercy after all she had endured. Then came the sound. Hooves in the distance. Low at first, then louder, a rhythm that quickened the heart. The rancher rose, moving to the window. His gut sank, lanterns flickered in the darkness. No, not lanterns, torches. 5, maybe 6 men riding fast. At their head was the stepfather, his voice carrying across the night. "Come on out, old man." "She's mine!" The girl stirred, eyes snapping open in terror. She clutched the blanket to her chest. "He's here," she whispered, voice shaking. The rancher chambered around, his voice steady, iron hard. "Stay down. Don't move unless I tell you." Outside, the gang circled, whooping and shouting, their torches throwing wild light across the cabin walls. One hurled a bottle that shattered against the barn. Flames leapt, licking at the dry boards. Horses screamed, kicking against their stalls. The rancher flung the door wide, rifle braced against his shoulder. "Turn back!" he roared into the night. "Or you'll bleed in the dirt you came on." Laughter answered him, cruel and sharp. The stepfather raised his pistol high. "You think you can keep her?" "She's mine till death." Gunfire split the night. Bullets tore splinters from the cabin door. The girl covered her ears, her cry drowned by the crack of rifles and the roar of fire. The rancher fired back, steady, deliberate. One rider fell from his horse, torch scattering into the grass. Another cursed, clutching his arm as his mount bolted, but the outlaws pressed harder. They drove their horses straight toward the cabin, torches raised, voices savage with rage. The barn crackled, flames spreading fast, casting the scene in a hellish glow. The girl pressed herself flat to the floorboards, whispering prayers through trembling lips. The rancher's jaw clenched as he stood in the doorway, silhouette framed by fire. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was war. The night air burned with smoke and fear, the fire from the barn casting flickering shadows across the prairie. Horses screamed, hooves pounding against dirt, kicking up clouds of dust that stung the eyes. The rancher's rifle stayed steady in his hands, every nerve taut, but even he felt the tide turning against him. Then, a distant whistle cut through the chaos. A drumbeat of hooves answering it. The rancher's eyes narrowed. "That's not theirs," he muttered. In the darkness, the silhouette of more riders emerged, moving fast, torches held high. But these were not the stepfather's men. The badges glinted in the moonlight. Sheriff Briggs and his deputies riding hard, rifles leveled, eyes cold with determination. "Hold the line." The sheriff shouted, voice carrying over the fire. "Back off or you'll answer to me." The stepfather's gang faltered, glancing at each other. Confusion rippled through them, the first sign of fear they had known all night.